want to let everyone know. Just want to let everyone know I may have to drop off. I've got something cooking over on the other computer here.
Okay.
I wanted to make sure I showed up today because Nicole invited me just yesterday.
Thanks, Steve. Yeah, so we do this right now. We're doing third Thursday educators meetup in Forward Link. So Steve is currently trying to get into Forward Link because he hasn't been there yet. But he is in writing and community. And this time, each time we were going to choose a topic to discuss, and this time we kind of wanted to open it up to something that Oscar and I have been batting around and working with Alex DePalma for the podcasting workshop, is to actually host some of these conversations about podcasting as a learning medium, method, and assessment tool inside that workshop, sort of a special interest group. As you see, all the workshops are kind of going in that direction. And so, hi, David. So we figured that we would open it up with something we kind of needed to get some fuel for this we have our thoughts, but we'd like to hear others. And then it would also, if there's something like that you're working on, I think that it could be something that we could use this time in that way, because our goal of Stop Stealing Dreams was like, yes, we could look at what Seth wrote, but we're all kind of familiar with it and trying to do it in different ways. And if we can assist each other or support each other, or even just be sounding boards for each other, I think it would be fantastic. So I know Steve said he might have to bounce, but we can still break into 2 rooms. It's still going to be a conversation, even if there's only 2 people left there, if he has to leave early. But I don't know if Oscar wanted to add anything to that. David already added so many things into our conversation, into the thread, so we can use that thread afterwards. But I do want to make sure that see if Oscar has anything to add that I missed.
Well, I think you covered almost everything that I would want to say. I would just like to invite you all to consider using podcasting as a learning tool, because we've discovered, Nicole, Sanat, and myself, Sanat's not going to be able to join us today, but all 3 of us, in different contexts and in different ways of using podcasting as a learning tool, it's been a terrific journey, and we've discovered many things from an educator standpoint, from someone as a student. So I think that you're going to find that looking at different ways to incorporate new tools to get people to enroll, it's extraordinary. So that's all I got to say to right now.
All right, I'm opening the rooms, and we'll do it for about 15 minutes, come back and share with each other what happened in each room. Okay? All right.
Howdy, howdy.
Perfect. How'd that go in the rooms? Good? All right. So I'm going to try and do the share back of ours first, just because I'm going to start where Steve ended, where he said education is a lonely sport. And he was interested in this concept of like, how in the future can he do more things where it feels more team-based between like-minded people. And that definitely ties into like how me and Oscar came to just start meeting weekly and having these conversations, and then saying, well, let's at least once a month try and grow this group and have other conversations, and what might we do together. What were you saying, Annette?
I just have a question. Jessica and I are education advocates. We are not educators. So I know Oscar is. Are the other 3 of you all formal educators?
Yes.
Is that a yes?
Yes. I mean, I have not been in the classroom with kids in years. Adult learners, yes. And I'm still working in education. So I sort of have a foot in the advocacy and pedagogy camp at the same time,
Okay,
and practicing my own continual learning.
great.
And I'm in schools at fairly often.
Okay.
Yeah, it sounded like Steve had a lot of a similar support for specifically of teachers of writing. So because he is the only one here who has not been in the podcasting workshop, I sort of said, let's just focus our attention on how could a podcast really help teach writing and help teachers teach writing, which he had a lot to say on. And in terms of, we can't really have him re-say everything he said, but I'll focus on the notes I took at least, was that, he was talking about switching to teaching teachers and having, these 1 hour Zooms, but really realizing that if you could take a concept and 30 seconds to 2 minutes, explain it, that bite-sized micro nano learning and doing it where it's well named, right? So the titles, the taxonomies, things like that it could be very effective. And then it was looking at learning by hearing for writing, we were talking a little bit about, and that it went into like you could have a visual assignment that links to this thing that then also has maybe its own show notes where it's, he likes when it has these little segments and stuff. And then I know David chimed in with talking about the transcripts and the show notes are its own genres of writing. And then, was even looking at like how you could challenge someone to write more content, like prequels and sequels and things like that. So we ended on where I would love to pick up on something David mentioned, which was teaching how to offer feedback. That is something that I personally need for my management class. And so if anybody has any ideas and wants to chime in on any resources for that, I'll just plug that myself. That it is, I don't want to say I didn't think about using the podcast for that. That is not the first way that I've thought about it, but I think I could, thinking about the team sport concept, I'm sure between us, we could probably demonstrate some really good feedback that I could show to my students because they need to learn that skill as management students. So that's my did I do a good job, guys?
Fantastic.
Okay. And what happened in your room?
Annette, Jessica, would you like to share? I think Annette wants to. You're muted, Annette.
Yeah.
Sorry.
More
I
questions.
really want to reflect on the discussion you just shared, because a lot of the work I've done is through poverty work and learning about distinctions of different individuals and different upbringings and stuff. And one of the things that I think is very relevant to what you just said is the difference between oral versus print learners. And, oral versus print culture is so different. And typically our generational poverty folks are oral, and they don't, when you're talking about all those things, I'm seeing words on a page in my head. I'm seeing lists. I'm seeing, if I'm listening to a podcast for writing, I'm watching it walk across the page. Oral learners aren't doing that. So are there ways to adapt to that? That's a question to talk about maybe later. But now I'm going to defer back to Oscar to wrap up. I thought we had a real good discussion in our room, but as both of us are more in the advocacy realm, it was interesting to hear Oscar's comments about podcasting as all those different tools, which I think of them so much so, but not necessarily for K-12, in our world, but why couldn't they be? So this is expanding my thinking. So I appreciate that.
I think she was handing it over to you, Oscar. Is that what she said? Thank you, Annette.
Well, I am. Yeah.
Well, we had a very interesting discussion. As Annette said, they both Jessica and her were speaking about their experiences as podcasters and their advocacies on public education specifically. And I think that they're bringing or they brought a great point in the sense that podcasting can be used not just by educators inside the traditional education system in public or private schools, but it also helps to have it as a tool because it educates communities in general, people who are outside. And there's also something that was brought up by Annette, that we usually have contests between students that encourage them into writing, into producing videos. So having people, students in this case, participate in contests and bringing science and other topics and sharing whatever they learn, their knowledge, and pretty much rewarding them for their finds and for using their voices is something that could be done to make education grow as a whole. So it was a very interesting discussion between the three of us.
And that's through a podcast,
That's
a
through
contest for a
podcasting.
podcast kind of thing.
Yeah.
Awesome. So anything else that anybody'd like to add? We'd like to keep it short so that we have this moment of connection. We have this thread inside Forward Link that if I'm hoping this stirs up some new things or for us, talks about collaborations and teamwork. But also we post the video for others to chime in as well. So invite any other educators that you find inside the workshops, because I know sometimes, like I just met Steven writing a community, but he did not join into Forward Link yet, but I'm encouraging him to, because
Trying
like
so hard.
What?
I'm trying so hard. Everybody's mentioned it.
Yeah, so he'll get in there. But is there anything, this meeting, if you keep this link, it's every third Thursday we'll meet at this time. So, but anything, last words before it's so good to see everyone again.
Thanks for connecting us.
Thanks for doing
Yeah,
this.
thank
I
you.
wanted to say that what Oscar said about cross-curricular work and multimedia stuff is really important. And when I say writing, I'm actually meaning now any sort of digital document where writing plays a major role. So Oscar, I really like, I forget what we call it in school, but it's just any media you want inside of a essentially written document. So good idea. Thank you all. Nice to be here the first time. I hope to catch you regularly when I can. Thank you.
Sounds good, Steve.
Thank you. Great
All right.
seeing you all.
Bye.
See you soon.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.